Okay, Shaq, we're live. Cheers. Thank you
buddy.
coming on.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad we're finally doing this, man. Like, it took us, I think, a couple months to finally get you on the podcast.
Absolutely,
You're an interesting
man.
guy, so
Appreciate that.
wanted to get you on to pick your brain on some of these businesses that you've started over the years.
Take away, my friend.
Because every time we have a few drinks, we always talk about it. I'm like, we need to capture this conversation.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for thinking of me. It's an absolute pleasure to be on.
Yeah, awesome. Let's dive right into it. Why don't you give me a brief background, just kind of on your journey of, where you went to school, kind of what jobs you had up until the point where you started your first business?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I went to school at York University. After that, I sort of dove in headfirst in the business world. I was in management consulting for a number of years. That's the one thing we do have in common. We were both at Deloitte, obviously, as you know.
What'd you study in school?
So I did business management. And actually
At York, okay.
Yeah, at York, and I minored in economics and finance, right? But yeah, did risk advisory at Deloitte, risk advisory for pre-IPO companies, which was cool, right? Got to see what it takes to take all the big companies of the world public, right?
How'd you like that?
Oh my God! You know what? It was a grind, as you know, right? But also, I really do think that it gave me the stepping stones needed to do a lot of other things in life, right?
Yeah.
Whenever, like, even when I'm actively like talking to other people in the business world, having the management consulting background somehow like sticks out, right? It's like being in private equity or investment banking, right?
Everybody kind of does their time, and it's
Yeah.
usually like the year to 2 years.
Exactly.
And then as soon as they're done there, everybody dips, and then they go off to do their own venture. But it's all kind of, it's like going to school.
It is. It really
this is like
It really
another
is.
type of school where you learn to work intensely. You learn all the skills to pitch decks to clients. So totally.
Yeah, and then so after that, I was on Dyson Canada, the vacuum company's national account manager. I don't know if you knew this about me.
I did know this about you because you
did.
told me you did
Yeah.
something very special with them at Costco.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
Absolutely, we can. Yeah,
Tell me.
let's do it. Why not, man? I'm under no NDA.
And we have all the time in the world and all the booze in the world to
Yeah,
start.
I know. Oh my God. But yeah, man, I was a national account manager for Dyson, the vacuum company. The job absolutely sucked. Haha, vacuum joke. But yeah, I manage all of Dyson Canada's flagship accounts, right? So you think about Best Buy, Bed Bath & Beyond, Canadian Tire, you name it, I probably touched the account, right? And one of the key things I was able to do during my time at Dyson was I helped them get into Costco, which is probably now, back then, it was a $9.2 million annual sales channel. Now, and back then, remember, Dyson only had vacuums. Now they got the hair dryer, now they got the robot, now they got the humidifier, right?
Which year was this again?
This was 2018.
Okay,
right?
so you just finished Deloitte. jumped over to
Exactly.
Dyson.
You got it, right? So, so they didn't have that much of a product offering, so it wasn't that big of a client then. But now Costco is it's got to be a $50 to $60 million client annual, right? And I was the one that was able to get them into Costco. Did you want me to jump into that a little bit?
Yeah, tell me about it. I want to know a story. Yeah.
Yeah. So the story was that when I came on board as their NAM, National Account Manager, I noticed that the one shelf that Dyson wasn't in was Costco, right? But Shark and Hoover were, right? But Dyson wasn't. So I went and reached out to the VP of buying at Costco, and I said, okay, Mark, what's going on? Why can't we have Dyson on your shelves, right? And he's like, Shaq, the thing is, Dyson customers are Costco customers are value conscious customers. They want to get the best bang for their buck, and they're not looking at an $800 vacuum, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So I get that, but there's got to be a solution for this, right? There's got to be a way that we can alleviate that and actually go through with the deal. So went back to the drawing board, looked at every single channel where Dyson products were sold. And there were a few, right? There's the retail channel, there is the online channel, and also I saw this third channel, right? Which was eBay. And so the Dysons that are not exactly the brand new ones, but the ones that are maybe like a year or two or even 3 years old, they sold them on eBay, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So these Dysons are Dysons that are not $800, they're $300.
Wow.
$400. $450, right? They're at a massive discount.
So at least a 50% discount.
At least a 50% discount. And they're not bad Dysons, they're just older ones.
How old were these Dysons? Like, were we talking like a few years? Or are we talking?
We're talking a few years, right? So think about how cheap an iPhone 12 or 11 would be right now, right? It's the same concept, right?
Right.
It's just in a different industry, right? So then I saw that, and I saw that they were selling like hotcakes. So what I did, was,
Don't worry, I'm just turning it down a little bit.
oh, my apologies, yeah.
No, all good.
Just yelling.
He's just yelling into the mic.
Just screaming at everyone watching this right now.
It's all good, brother.
But
Keep doing.
yeah, but yeah. So looked at all the channels and then went back to the drawing board, and then eventually I went back to the guy at Costco and I was like, okay, cool. You know what? Here's what I'm going to propose for you guys. I will make a Costco specific Dyson brown box program. Like, you know, like this is going to be specific for Costco. And what is going to happen? It's going to say Dyson for Costco on the box. It's going to be at a 50% discount. And the guy was ecstatic. He's like, you know what? Dyson's been contacting me for almost the last 6 years. No one has ever been able to offer that to me. Wow. And in the back of my head, I'm like, this is not even taking me a huge allocation of resources. I'm literally just taking one channel where we're selling these products and putting it to another channel and making it seem like they're getting a fantastic deal, right? which honestly, that's just how business is. That's not even being sly, right? That's literally what business is. And then fast forward to, this is in April, fast forward to September of that year, right? We got in our first couple Costco stores, which were C-level stores, and we were expected to sell, I think, around 50 to 60,000 units. That's sort of what we considered like a great successful pilot. We ended up selling 102,000 Dyson products in Costco. So,
Wow.
So that ended up being probably one of the coolest things I got to be a part of.
That's amazing. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that
man.
obviously looks
Yeah.
good to
Cheers
your...
to that.
Cheers to that. Cheers, brother.
Yeah, buddy.
So how many stores was this brown box program in initially?
Initially, it was we had around 10 to 20 stores, and in these, we're talking around like C-level stores. So they wouldn't put us in like the Sherway.
Okay.
They're gonna put us in Sherway Gardens immediately, right? It's nothing like that. But it's a stores where they want to test it out, right? It's basically Costco's playing ground.
And the fact that you killed it in those
Killed it.
C-level stores.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Killed it in those C-level stores. Eventually, they rolled it out nationwide. And learnings from that program actually helped create the Dyson retail program. Because I don't know if you remember this, back in Yorkdale and Sherway Gardens and all these malls, there was never Dyson stores before. The only place you could really buy a Dyson product was actually in Best Buy and everything else. But the whole program went so well that they're like, okay, cool. You know what? We have enough data now to actually sell our own products because we know exactly how well it's selling at all these other retailers, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, that's definitely a career highlight for me, hands down, as you can imagine. And I'm really proud that I got to be part of that deal.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating to hear. And I'm sure all those things that you learned during Costco about how to, you know, solve problems and get these new products into store and figure out like a different way to sell a product helped you in all your ventures after that.
Absolutely, man. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Especially because a lot of people, I think even me and you, we look at the products on the shelves. We go to Norfolk or Walmart or whatever, and we just pick up the product, but we never think about how the product gets there. And you don't realize that every single company, whether it be Unilever or Kraft or whatever it may be, they have their own supply chain line, their shipping line, and they have a contact at Walmart that they talk to, and it's a really complicated process, which I think for the first time in my life, that taught me to appreciate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's an added complexity too when you have like a multinational brand versus a local brand. Because I was in the store yesterday actually, and I was looking for a very niche local Toronto product, and I was in Metro.
Right.
And so I was worried that this store wouldn't have it because Metro's a pretty big brand and they carry a lot of the big stuff.
Right.
But they did have it, which was awesome. And it's interesting, again, to see that you have these multinational brands that are pulling their products and manufacturing them wherever in the world. Yeah. And that gets to you. But then you also have the local stuff as well. And both end up on your shelf.
That's it.
Somehow,
exactly, right? You're 100% correct.
So it's quite fascinating. But so that's cool. So you did Costco. You killed it with Dyson.
Yep.
What came after Dyson?
Yeah, after that, I sort of got headhunted for, I guess you could say, my first sort of startup role, which is actually what I guess.
No, so this is the first startup.
The first startup, I got headhunted for a startup called FibreStream, which I know there's going to be a lot of Toronto people watching this. They probably know the company. It's a Wi-Fi company for condo buildings and hospitality. we were in Ottawa, and basically when I was hired, by my co-founders, right? That's literally when they were trying to blow up Toronto, right?
Oh, so your co-founders found you.
My co-founders found me, yeah. So my
okay.
co-founders found me. They reached out to me on LinkedIn, and then afterwards they saw what I had done before, and they're like, okay, cool, like we need a guy to really, really grind Toronto and launch this product in Toronto, and that's sort of what I was helped do.
Interesting. So if they found you on LinkedIn, but you're saying you were in Ottawa at the time.
Pardon me? No, they were in Ottawa at the time.
They were in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And you were in Toronto. Okay.
I was in Toronto, but they wanted somebody to launch Toronto. And
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they kind of had this idea, because I think off camera we were talking about this
Yeah.
in the past, where your one friend actually worked in fiber internet.
Yeah, he did.
Something to do with that. He did. And then that's kind of where the idea came. And then you also joined them and kind of all came together to start this business.
That's exactly how it happened, Nick. So, so they had a background in IT and actually putting together fiber. And then I was sort of the one that came on board with the business acumen and the portfolio management and being able to manage a large team or whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, for lack of a better way to say it, do the grunt work, even door knocking on property managers' doors, right? Think of me like when I started this venture, of being a Jehovah's Witness of Wi-Fi.
It's an interesting way to put that. You know what? I'm gonna change the title to the Jehovah's Witness of Wi-Fi.
That's good, eh?
Yeah.
But no, literally, right? You think about even this building that we're in right now. I have knocked on the property manager's door.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, literally. I swear to God, I'm not.
How many like doors do you reckon you knocked on in your time?
Oh my God, I can't even imagine, man. There's got to be at least hundreds, right? But that's the grunt work of actually starting a new business or starting
entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship, exactly, right? You really can't get scared to get in the weeds, and I think that's what a lot of people lack when they go from a really stable 9 to 5 and they try to do their own thing. They think the grunt work is going to be done. It's like, no, there's nobody to do it. It's you. Mm-hmm. You're the one who's going to do it. You're the one who's supposed to do it, right? And I think
you can't have like an inflated ego.
No, you
to
can't.
do it. You have to be willing to do the things that no one else wants to do. That's why so many people don't want to do it. Like I'm going through it right now with starting this YouTube channel. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be willing to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
But hopefully it works. Hope something sticks and
right?
Carries on,
Exactly. But the way that you got to look at it is whether it works or not. The fact that you try, the fact that you actually put in the effort, you did more than 99% of the population will do, which is at least try.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, no one actually cares.
No one cares.
No one cares. Like no one's watching this.
Yeah.
Even if they did and said like, this was stupid. I'm like, okay.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Ask me again in 2 years. Like we'll see. Even if I fail, like it's still experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even if you're, going door to door, that person's not going to think
Exactly.
oh, this guy's an idiot for being here.
Yeah.
And even if they do, who cares? It's still experience.
Yeah. I'll never forget. For that company, and by the way, I'll give everyone a little bit of preface if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
Go for it.
So when I joined, we had just under 300 or 400 clients in downtown Toronto.
Okay, so they had already built some.
They had a little bit of clients, but it's mostly FNF, family and friends, right? But
gotcha. 300 though, that's still
300 paying customers or whatever it may be, right? But again, that was the bulk of the user base, right? So when we got acquired by Beanfield and another company.
That's acquired by Beanfield?
Yeah, acquired by Beanfield.
Which is my internet.
Yeah,
so.
There you go. Yeah. And another company back in 2021, we had just under, I think, 36,500 clients. So not only was I part of the 0 to 1, but also the 1 to 10, right? And all those nuances that you got to hit. And how does Shaq go from being just, business development and marketing leader to leading a team? How do I think about growing new avenues? How do I think about treating different neighborhoods in Toronto as their own little line of business, right? Because selling in Yorkville is not going to be the same as selling at Yonge and Sheppard, right? When we started Yonge and Sheppard, we had to hire somebody that spoke Mandarin, right? So, so literally, you got to treat every little pocket of your business as its own localized, hyper-targeted business. And I think that's the one thing that really set me apart. And the reason that I was able to succeed the way I did is we got really hyper-focused, man. Like literally, we would sponsor building barbecues. Like I'm not like really? you know the summer barbecues that buildings have. Yeah. We would do that, and we would put a little stand there and be like, "Hey, you're at this barbecue, live in this building. We'll give you 3 months free Wi-Fi. Just give us a shot, right?"
Yeah.
And people would eat that up because people love other people that get involved in the community, and that's something. And I'm gonna name drop. There might be a lawsuit that comes to mind, but that's fine. That's something Bell and Rogers won't do, right? No, actually though.
Yeah.
they won't get super hyper local
'Cause they're so big and they
they're
don't
so
need
big.
to.
They don't need to, exactly.
Yeah,
right?
one thing I've noticed, so I have Beanfield for internet right now,
Yeah.
and everything from the customer service to the UX UI experience on or UX UI on their website is amazing
Incredible.
compared to like Rogers or Bell. It's a huge pain.
Excuse me.
So it's no, I can definitely see how those kind of smaller companies, especially when you're getting started, do a better job at that, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, so you helped grow it in those initial stages and then obviously scale it later on.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me kind of an overview of how you got it started and those initial phases?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you guys do like right at the beginning?
No, honestly, yeah. That honestly, so again, it was a lot of getting property management to be just on board with us, right? And the way we would sell it is like, okay, cool. And this is where it gets really interesting.
But it's like, I think again, we chatted about this offline. There was already fiber cable in the ground for the banks, right?
Yes.
And so your friend had an idea to tap into that, like a very small percentage.
Correct. Yeah.
And then feed that into condo buildings.
Yeah, well, not just the banks, but for pretty much everything, right?
Okay.
So fiber, so it's called dark fiber, right? Dark fiber was laid in the ground years ago, right? Years ago, and it's just to sort of future-proof cities, but no one really uses it, right?
Okay.
But what we found out was, and this is stuff that people can Google, the main data center in Toronto, where all the internet companies plug into, is at 151 Front Street, right? It's called TOR1. That is the main data center that everyone plugs into for Wi-Fi. We found out that we could have our own sort of router in that building as well, just lease it and utilize the dark fiber and basically get to as close as we need to the building to be actually able to provide Wi-Fi to the entire building.
Is that as simple as it was just
It's
having
really
your
not
own
that.
you didn't have to lay any new...
I am dumbing it down so much, man. You have no idea, and that's mainly because I'm not an IT engineer by any means or a networking engineer. Yeah. But that is in a way that the viewers and the mass and the mass majority of people will understand it.
Helping me understand it. So
there you go. Yeah, right. So and funny enough, it's like if everyone watching, you look at your router at your house. Every city has a router just a lot bigger to service entire city. Like literally internet, if you think about it, in the easiest way to understand, it's a bunch of routers that connect to a main source that plugs into underwater cables that go across the Atlantic and connect the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. But every single city has its own major big router that plugs into your router right at home that you're listening to this podcast on.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So, okay, so you guys figured that out, that you could, have your own router essentially.
Yep.
And then your thought was, okay, let's take this specifically to condo buildings.
Exactly, yeah.
And apartments. Why did you decide to go that route and not like, I don't know, businesses or commercial or...
Great question.
Residential.
Yeah. So that's something that... one of the co-founders actually like put together really hard on is having a big priority on residential. And the reason it was condo buildings is because you think about it this way, okay? If we put our equipment at the end of a residential street that has just houses, right, then we can service 10 to 12 houses. If we put our equipment in P1 of this condo, there's 500 units that can... You see where I'm going with this?
I see where I'm going, yeah.
Exactly, right? So it's to achieve economies of scale, right? We
yeah.
want to be high fidelity, high rise for the lowest cost. And the only way to be able to do that is condo buildings, right? So we figured that out and we're like, okay, let's really go balls to the wall with this, right? Let's figure out exactly how we're going to do it. And the process was we're going to go ask for permission to get our equipment into the building, and we're going to ask the property manager, and in return, we're going to give them free services. So the average building or TSCC Corp, like maybe some people know what we're talking about, but the building board, they have their own Wi-Fi and internet bill, right? For the Wi-Fi and internet in the gym, in the party room, right? In their own office, in downstairs, in the lobby, right? They have their own bill, which is usually hundreds of dollars a month. Right? So we're like, okay, if you let us have our equipment in your building, we will cover all of your telecom.
Okay.
Right? We'll cover all.
So that was the
telecom.
advantage you could
That was the advantage, exactly, right? All you got to do is let us pull some cable into this building, and in return, we will give you all the services. And also, if you don't mind letting us, like, market to your residents that, hey, you have another option other than big blue and big red, then you like that?
I like that. A subtle way of putting it.
Exactly, right? You have another option available, right? That's all we're looking for, right? We're looking to help you, help us, and let us speak to your residents.
That's interesting. So you did have to put cables into the building then to set it all up.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
So we need to have, to make this really simple, we need to have our dark fiber to like Ethernet converter, right? So it takes the fiber, converts to Ethernet. That Ethernet goes up to every single unit, right? So
they laid a bunch of cable into essentially every single unit. You're saying, or
no. So that's also, and that's where it gets really interesting, right? Okay. Because the thing is, normally,
I'm fascinated by it. I don't know how this works. So.
Yeah. So normally that would be the case if it's Bella Rogers, right? But the way we did it was that we had somebody in the lobby of the building, right, selling our internet essentially, right, and whoever signed up, then we would pull a custom cable only to their unit. So what does that do for us? That reduces man hours needed, that reduces cost needed, and also that makes sure that we're only going where we're going to make money. If I'm fishing a cable from P1 of this building into your unit right now, I would expect you to be a paying customer because that alone on man hours is going to cost us probably a couple $100. Right, so if you're not a paying customer, then
there's no point.
There's no point. That's a huge loss for me. I mean, can you imagine if I did that for every single unit in the building? That'd be an astronomical cost, and that business would not be the title of this podcast right now. Right?
Exactly.
Actually, though, right?
That's very smart.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's really where the differentiator came. Is that we were really hyper targeted with our approach, and we made sure that everything we did there was a more than 75 to 80% success rate.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're laying some cables in, but only for the people that are actually buying.
Yeah.
How many years did you kind of grow this business, and what was your strategy to grow and take this from a startup to something bigger?
Yeah, absolutely. And that couldn't have been done without like the team and, everyone that was there in the initial laying the ground stages, right?
Maybe let me ask, like, how big was the team? You had 2 business partners originally?
Yeah. So the main people in Toronto were about three of us, right?
Okay.
So the team itself, I guess at the final stages was around 40.
Wow.
Right? 40, yeah. So we definitely grew our headcount a lot, and it was a really, really exciting time, and it's probably the most rewarding thing I got to be a part of.
And how many years did you grow it? So you began in which year? And
so it was like tail end of 2018 after Dyson, right, and then afterwards all the way to when we got acquired in 2021. Wow. So essentially, I would like to say I was first one in, last one out.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so how did you grow it? You said you did a lot of door knocking.
Yeah.
You're offering this special pitch to them, where you're paying for their Wi-Fi and offering free services to them. Mm-hmm. What kind of other strategies did you take to really scale this company?
Yeah, other strategies I would say is really granular marketing. So funny enough, one of the best avenues and one that I managed was running things like Instagram and Facebook and Meta ads, right? Wow. So and that's something that, and by trade I'm not a marketer, right? But the thing is, this is another thing about entrepreneurship is like I had to learn. Because guess what? We didn't have budget for a marketing agency, right? Mm-hmm. Like we weren't just that big yet, right? So I had to learn and we had to do it. And it was really exciting. Like I'll never forget. One story I want to share that I'll never forget is when we did an Instagram ad and I saw, I was holding, if anyone's a marketer, I'm holding the iPhone app. It's called Meta. Back in the day, it was called Facebook Ads Manager or whatever, right? And it's like, oh, you got to sign up. I was like, what? I got to sign up for Wi-Fi for my ad? Like it was a Christmas day, like the first sign up that I got on Instagram, from an ad. I don't think I'll ever forget. It's so
fascinating
cool.
when it actually works.
Yeah. When it works, exactly, right? And then from there, I was like, okay, cool. Let's really, really hone in on our strategy. And the way that we did it was anybody that, I'll give it this way. If anyone's ever shopped on an e-commerce store and then you have something in your cart, but you don't check out, you get an email. It's like, hey, you forgot something in your cart, right? So cart abandonment. Shopify does that very, very well. That's something similar to what we did so that if you came on our website, and then after you put in your name and your email, but you didn't sign up, right? What would happen is that cookie on your browser would then get transferred to Instagram, and then you get an Instagram ad. Then you go on Google, you
just
get a
get
Google
bombarded
ad.
with
We would I will follow you everywhere. I'll be like a peep. I'll be like a peeping Tom outside your house. You know,
You'll literally get Facebook ad, Instagram ad, and then Shaq will be outside your house holding a sign.
Holding a sign, like, you know, holding an Ethernet cable. You know,
We're ready.
We're ready. No, but genuinely, right? And that is how you win in 2025, right?
Yeah.
You gotta think about it this way. Like before, in our parents' era, like, you know, you think about big billboards, you think about flyers and everything. Yep. The biggest billboard available to us today is right in front of your face, and it's your phone. If you can get your business on a person's phone, you are winning.
Mm-hmm. On the phone and tailor the ads.
Tailor the ads, exactly.
100%.
Right. Right, like you think about it this way, right? And we've done all of it, right? I got a quote from Patterson Outdoor because I wanted
Worked
to.
with them?
Well, did you? Yeah, 6
Yeah.
because you know what I wanted to do? I want to get fiber stream all over the subways, and they have rights to do the advertising on the subways. I'll never forget to do one subway car, it's like $10K, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and then to do a billboard, it's like $4K.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sounds right.
Yeah, right? So I was like, okay, cool. If I dump that money into strategic digital marketing, we're basically, you know, we're retargeting people, we're following people around, right? Then the success rate is going to be way higher.
Absolutely.
Because you think about it this way. The people that have left my website are people that are already in market because they have typed in their address. They are ready to get service. How do I know that everyone on the subway is not living at a house? They're not living at a condo where we're available, right?
Exactly. Or need new Wi-Fi or even interested in it.
Exactly, right? So the whole behavioral aspect of it, which we're getting really technical now, right? But there's a whole behavioral aspect of it, which is honestly half the battle. You win the behavioral battle and you'll win the psychological battle.
Absolutely. I think the only reason one would...
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. That was a great overview.
Yeah.
I think the only reason why one would kind of go towards more of the subway line is to just raise general brand awareness.
Awareness, exactly.
One of the greatest ones I've seen was Loblaws.
I don't have money for brand awareness. Buy my Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
You know?
Literally just buy the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Here's why.
Here's why, right?
But one of the best ones I saw was No Frills doing the No Name.
Yeah,
and they did a whole subway station.
Yeah.
They're like subway car.
Yeah,
and
stairs
like,
for walking up.
Stairs.
Yeah.
That was clever. And so
that's awesome.
That was a good one. But maybe if we go back to your business here, if you can give me kind of an overview of some of the challenges and learnings that because I'm assuming like there was many ups, there were many downs as well. So what were some of those key challenges and learnings that you had from your first business?
The first one, yeah. So the first one that I joined, I would say some of the key challenges were really competing against the big guys, right? And being the underdog in the market. Because you got to realize it this way, that it came a point where you got to realize that being a 300 to 1,000 client company and being a 30,000 client company, those are two very different companies, right? And when you get to that level where like you're on the tail end of that and you're like a 30,000 client company, you're gonna start to piss some people off, specifically Big Blue and Big Red, right? To the point where whenever clients would call and tell Rogers or Bell that, hey, you know, we want to cancel, or we're moving to these guys, they would immediately match our price.
Wow.
I'm not even kidding. They would beat our price.
Wow.
Like we'd be at like $30. They'd be like, we'll give it to you for 22. Just stay with us.
Interesting.
F those guys, like, you know, like that sort of thing, right? And that's when it really hit me that, wow, we're pissing these guys off.
That's good. That means you have something.
Exactly, we have something, right? And that was a eureka moment. And then I'll never forget the day that one of the co-founders sent me this flyer. It was from Bell, being like, leave these guys, come with us. It was
they actually called you out.
They called us out, yeah, man. And that was literally probably one of the funniest days of my life, because I was like, wow, who would have thought that our little company that is operating out of a storage unit would literally piss off these guys, like, you know, enough to, like, you know, even get to that level where they're like, okay, can you imagine the guy at Bell being like, yo, the marketing team, do this right now, get all these flyers out to every single, like, you know, like, it's the craziest thing ever, right? But again, that shows that we have a right trajectory. But again, that was one of the biggest challenges, right?
Did they ever come after you in any other way than just marketing?
Marketing and A lot of times, yes. Like, if we were gonna be going to a building or whatever, right? They try to make sure that we don't have rights to be in that building. They try to it's all politics if it comes down to it, right? They try to like tell the property manager or whatever, like, oh, like we're not gonna be doing this or this for you anymore if you letting third parties in. That's
trying
what
to
we're
intimidate them a little bit. Yeah, that's what I figured they would
right.
be doing.
And it's crazy because that's what showed me. It's like, wow, we really have something here that is getting big enough to the point where they're like, okay, no, we can't let this happen anymore. They put boots on the ground, right? So.
And so what would you say would be your key learning or key takeaway from that first business?
Key learning, key takeaway really was that, man, really loaded question. It's simple, but it's a loaded question. But I would say that, one, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. Two, you really got to know your customer better than they know themselves. And three, don't be scared to be really granular. I feel like a lot of people really look at high level stuff, which is fine. But guess what? Everyone else is doing the high level stuff. No one does the nitty gritty. No one gets in front of the customer's face. No one goes to where their customers go. Right.
Right.
And that really is genuinely what wins.
Wow. No, that's a great point. Especially the know your customer better than they know themselves.
There you go.
100%. Okay, so now you're at the point, it's 2021.
Yeah.
2021, you're about to sell your soul. How'd you get to that point where, okay, it's time to sell the business? And can you walk me through what that sale process was like?
Yeah. Well, to be completely honest with you, obviously we had a whole team that, really did help with that portion, right? I really wasn't completely involved from A to Z in the whole selling portion part, but all I do know is that and all that I can really say is that
Fair.
Right, is that we got an offer from, and it's public, from Beanfield, right? And then afterwards went through the due diligence, went through the ropes, right? Similar to any other corporate M&A, if you think about it, right? It was just different because the entity itself was like a U.S. entity, right? U.S. entity because Beanfield themselves, they have a U.S. entity that they sort of are under, right? And we're a Canadian company, so that was sort of the complexity of it, right? U.S. and Canadian stuff, right? Having lawyers on both sides that do both, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But other than that, it was a pretty straightforward process from what I know, right?
Okay.
And from what I can say.
Fair enough. Okay. So and then you sell this, or they sell this company. You guys are essentially done with it. Did you stay on for a little bit? What was?
No. Funny enough, I did have the option to, but I really do genuinely, after working for companies like Dyson and Deloitte, I love the nitty grittiness of working for a small team. And what I'll say about that, I'm sure you can relate to that as well, right? It's easier and it's more fun to like report to one person than to report to 10 people.
100%.
Right?
And just the fact that you know everybody's name and
exactly
everybody knows your name and
exactly. And it really does reduce the politics as well, right? Yeah. And it's like, you think about it this way, right? If I have an issue at a smaller company, I will go bring it up to one person and that issue is fixed like that.
Yep.
But with a bigger company like Deloitte, you bring it up to one person, they have to talk to somebody else, they raise a support ticket. That support ticket, you're smiling, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it takes a month
for someone
to look at it.
Right? So, and that's not agile, right? That really is not, right?
And these large companies, they have all the resources.
Yeah.
But that's their weakness too.
That's their weakness.
And so that's where startups thrive.
Yeah.
Is they don't have resources, but they can be agile. They can move quick.
Exactly. Something's wrong at 3 p.m. It could be fixed at 4 p.m. Mm-hmm. Right?
Deloitte, take several months, maybe a year, depending on what.
Exactly.
There's still things that are not fixed. Anyway. No, but that's super interesting. So you sell the business with your partners. It's all done. You don't stick around.
Yep.
How does it feel when you sell that business and you're like, wow, look, like this, amazing several years spent building this business. It's done. Sold it for multi-millions. Like, was there ever a moment where you're like, holy crap, like, look what I've just did. Like, this is awesome.
Obviously the entire team was ecstatic, like without a doubt. Right.
100%.
It's crazy because it's almost like when you're you're in a position where it took up so much of your life, right? It really did, right? Like you think about when I think about my early 20s, I think about that company, right? And I think about everything I achieved there, right? I think about the learning lessons, right? So it really is bittersweet, but also it's really exciting because now you have the opportunity to take on something completely new, right? Whether it be a brand new, whatever it may be, and we're probably going to get into that now,
Yeah.
right? But it really does give you the opportunity to shift gears, and I think that's what I appreciated the most.
Awesome. Well, you touched on it, so let's dive into the next business.
do it.
So you finished with your first business in 2021.
Yep.
Sold it. How did you arrive at the point where you wanted to start this next business, and then what was that business?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into that. It's so funny. It's the best moments in life really do happen in the most serendipitous ways. And this was a buddy of mine who I'll name Sergio. I'll start naming people, but yeah, we sat on the couch together at my condo at the time, which was close to Cactus Club, and then we both just loved cars. We both loved cars. He loved cars, and he had actually invested in multiple car dealerships before, and he knew the whole process of buying and selling cars in Canada down to a T, right? And then he saw that I had the business acumen. I knew how to market stuff. I was really good. I was really good at the whole 0 to 1, and that's where most businesses fail. Is the 0 to 1, right? Going from 1 to 10 is no offense, but it's a little easier because at that point you already have revenue, recurring revenue, right? You already have clients, right? And that gives you exponentially easier, means to grow.
Sure, and you have
0 to 1 is where people really,
because you have to figure it out.
It's
the initial phases, whereas the mid-size growing, you have a rhythm established.
Yeah,
Like you already know
exactly.
what you're doing. You just have to do more of it,
Yeah.
and improve on it.
Exactly. So you'll never believe it, but it's like we're sitting on my couch, and then literally we're like, screw it, dude. Let's try to do this. Let's buy a domain,
Okay.
So that night on my couch, we went on GoDaddy. I bought the domain, AutoCoin.ca, right? And then afterwards, we're like, okay, you know what? Let's try to make this happen, right? Within a week, I had our first draft of our website up, right? And then after that, we sort of tried our best to, get a deck built and also get to work, right? And what we were trying to do was basically simplify online car buying for Canadians, which we did end up doing, right?
Okay.
So everything from everything from looking for the vehicle online, right, to doing financing, to even getting it delivered.
And is this for new cars? Is it for used cars?
Great question.
'Cause I'm thinking of like an auto trader.
Yeah.
Is it something kind of similar to that? But
It's similar to AutoTrader, right?
Gotcha.
But it was for used cars, right? But the one thing that we did is that we tried our best to do everything in house, right? So we worked with credit partners, right? We worked with a warranty provider, right? We worked with we had our own trailers.
Okay.
We bought our own trucks and trailers, man. Oh my God, yeah. But we genuinely did put in all the work that we could to make sure that the average Canadian could have a new car buying experience with a used car.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so this idea came. You bought the domain. Did you receive any funding or any initial help, or was it just you and your friend to do this?
Great question. So obviously, the term is bootstrapped in the startup world, right? But we bootstrapped it for a little bit, which means that we put in our own money, but a very little amount, not a lot, right? And then from there, I flew out to San Francisco. I flew out to San Francisco, and just like sort of what I learned in my work with FiberStream, I was like, let's knock on some investors' doors, and with investors is different. It's not like literal door knocking, but it's setting up coffee.
Sure. And you can go
chats,
to
right?
places where they already are.
Exactly.
Right? Like conferences, be like, hey, pull them aside.
Exactly. And that's literally what I did, right? I literally looked up all the main VCs that I want to get in front of, and then tried to book meetings, and I tried to make sure I had the most productive. I was there for almost 2 months, man. I was there for a while. And San Francisco is not a cheap city. So
Nope.
There you go. So, it was, there's that. But again, it was, again, the one thing that I continued to do very, very well is bet on myself, right? I really did bet on myself, right? And I was like, okay, screw it. Not that I don't have a lot to lose, but it's like, if this works out, this becomes a really killer story. And if it doesn't work out, it's still a killer story.
Yeah. And it's something you're passionate about.
Exactly.
You like cars. So.
Exactly. I loved cars, right? So we did that, and then out of that, fast forward 2 months, got it. One funny thing is, me and my co-founder and COO, we have probably pitched to at least 250 investors. I'm not even lying.
Wow.
Like, yeah, at least 250. I can show you my emails after this. Like if you
Sure.
you name a venture fund, if I type in their name into my email, guaranteed I've had a conversation with them.
Wow.
You name it, Scotiabank, Roynet, Innovia Capital, SoftBank, you name it, I've probably talked to them, which is insane to think about. But that did a couple things. It made me really good at pitching. Like, when I talk, I'm really like clear about what I want to say, right? And that's one skill that I would say that I'm really grateful that I picked up. But out of that came an investment, right? We raised just over $500,000.
Okay.
And then
Wow.
and then after that, we got a debt note for $1 million, right? So total $1.5 million raised.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you raised
USD, because
Well, okay.
because CAD is.
Not doing well.
Yeah, exactly. I had to put that out there. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. So you raised 1.5 million. I'm assuming it's all for equity.
Equity, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you spent 2 months in San Francisco. You raised the money. You come back. What do you do? How do you build this business?
Yeah, and that's where that was sort of the tricky part, right? It's like, how do we go from, just not having much to like really having everything, right? And I think what it came down to is sort of like having like sort of a 120-day sprint, if you will, right? We put in weekly guidelines that we had to do. And by the way, anyone that's watching this, if you're trying to do anything in life and you're not using Monday.com or Asana, you got to get on that. You're smiling, right? Because project management tools are the best, right?
Absolutely.
But that's really what we did, right? We really put everything down on paper, put everything down, every single thing.
Because it holds you accountable.
Yeah, it holds you accountable, right? Everything down to the most silly things. Like, don't forget to go do this or call this guy or whatever, right? Everything. Write down everything. Because the only way that it's actually going to get done is if it's visualized.
Absolutely.
Right? So we did that. And then after that, we started making partnerships with a bunch of dealerships, right? So like I'm really grateful that I have a really good circle of friends that are in automotive as well, right? So we partnered with their dealerships to basically help them do their last mile delivery, just to get our foot through the door, do something with it, right? Just so we have a couple of case studies. He did the same. And then from there, one of the people that I had actually reached out to for investment, and I'm not going to name drop, but it was actually from Scotiabank, right? He was the head of their venture fund, right? We pitched to him, and then he's like, "Boys, I love this idea. I'm not going to give you money, but I will come on board and be your co-founder," right? And that's sort of what he told us, right? Because he really, really loved the idea. He loved the idea of being able to, get a great used car buying experience. Because if you think about it, the used car buying experience really does suck. Like think about if you buy a car from Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji, it's probably like, going to be a lemon, or people are going to hide things from you, or it's just not a really great car shopping experience. Even myself, I'll never forget, I bought a car for my sister. And the guy, and it came with a legal Ontario safety paper, which said that it's been safety, emission tested. As soon as I drive it off the lot, like oil starts leaking. Like as soon as I drive it off the lot, oil is leaking all from the bottom of the car.
Oh no.
And then I go try to get gas. I fill up the gas tank. As I'm filling up the gas tank, the gas is leaking from under the gas tank. The gas tank had a hole in it.
So did the guy forge it?
He just forged it. He just forged it, and just like, and that is not even like, it's not that rare of a case. That's what's crazy about it, right? Like,
especially in a big city like Toronto.
Exactly, right? So when it comes to buying a used car, nobody has trust and transparency. Nobody, right? And that's the one thing that we really did go to change, and we did change. And I think that's sort of what the third piece of the puzzle my co-founder at Scotiabank really found valuable.
Okay, so you're basically connecting people that are interested in buying cars to cars from dealerships, you said, or with also private sellers as well.
Yeah, so it'd be dealerships or private sellers,
Okay.
right? But the thing is, we would have our extra line of defense, which is we would actually go and inspect the car on your behalf.
So that's
right?
okay. That's what I was going to double check.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would go inspect the car on your behalf. You would get a 92-point inspection, which literally looks at everything from the tires to the oil levels to even like scratches on the cloth seats or whatever it may be, right? So really did go above and beyond to make sure that you are happy with your car purchase.
Interesting. Okay. So what was, when you initially started this business, what was kind of that moment where you're like, this business is going to be successful? You have your co-founder.
Yeah.
How are you doing with sales? Like,
Yeah.
was there a specific moment where you're like, no, we've got something here?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing really was when we finished raising our capital, and these, like, you know, and by the way, like, this was all from Silicon Valley VCs. Like, you know, I'm this Toronto kid flying out to Silicon Valley, like, you know, just preaching the choir. And then when they saw value in it, and when they were able to, like, you know, like, be like, okay, you know what, this is a really cool idea, because if you think that the used car buying experience is bad in Toronto, used car buying experience in America, where there's 10 times more people, is absolutely 100% worse, right? So the fact that they could resonate with our vision and actually give us resources as well, right? Like we had so many resources available to us because of us getting this venture funding that really did help us scale.
Okay. So you're growing, you're having success. How many years did you grow that business for?
Yeah. So, and here's where it gets really, really interesting. So we started in Toronto, and then afterwards, we met. So me and my co-founder from Scotiabank, we met a guy that from Vietnam, who's, like, you know, part of, like, you know, I would like to say the Vietnamese royal family or something like that, or, like, you know, along the lines. And he was, we pitched it to him, and he's like, boys, this would kill it in Asia. Like, absolutely kill it in Asia, right? And then we're like, by the way, I've never been to Asia, right? Like, you know, so it's like, and I don't think neither has my one of my co-founders, right? So it was, like, nerve-wracking, but he laid it down, right? He laid it down how broken the process was in a lot of Asia. Like, I'll give you a great example. Like, you know how here we have our Service Ontario ownership, and if you lose your ownership, then it's fine, you get a new one, right? In Vietnam, the initial ownership from when the car was built, doesn't matter if it's 1960, you gotta have the piece of paper from 1990, 2000, whatever it is. You lose the piece of paper, sorry, you can't.
You need, like, a system to upload that, and people can
no
access
system.
it all the time.
There's none.
Okay.
There's none.
Was that something that you were essentially wanting to do?
That's something that we did do.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, tell me about that. Tell me about going to Vietnam.
So we'll dig into that. So obviously we pre-planned the hell out of that, right? That trip, right? But yeah. So how did it start? I'm trying to word this the right way, but yeah, we built the roadmap. We got a warehouse down there, right? And obviously it was easier to get a warehouse and office down there because, you know, the Canadian dollar goes much further there, right? So whereas here we'd be paying, like, you know, 10K Canadian for a big office and a warehouse, there we were paying about 1K.
Okay.
Right. So
Sizable difference, right?
So and that, what that meant is we had more runway to work with, right? And we could do cooler things, right, with our money, right? So we did all that. We hired a general manager who's ex-automotive as well, right? And spoke the language in Vietnam. And yeah, we built a whole, like, team, right? And then from there, we started building our website and everything. And then we started marketing as well. So here we have, like, obviously Uber and, like, you know, Lyft, but there they have their equivalent called Grab, right? Grab Car, Grab Eats, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, cool. We're gonna market on there, right? And we're gonna start calling people up. And one thing that we did, which was really funny and cool, but they have their own version of, like, Kijiji and AutoTrader there.
Okay.
People that were, like, selling their cars, like, on you know, those platforms, we would call them up, like, sell it on our platform instead. I swear to God, like, it's the most nitty gritty stuff, but that's what you got to do.
Did you offer them a specific deal?
Yeah, of course. We're like, we'll give you an inspection report and all the same stuff that we're trying to offer in Toronto, right? We're gonna give you everything you need to sell this car efficiently, because you don't have these papers, right? And it's not normal to get an inspection done, right? Like like in Asia or Vietnam, right? It's like you get what you get, sort of thing, right? And then you got to do your due diligence, and that's what it is. So we were giving them things that have never been offered before. Right? Yeah. Like digital things, like, you know, digitizing the process. That it wasn't everything. There's analog, like everything. Like, there's a lot of ways that Asia is ahead of us, but there's a lot of ways that they're behind.
Sure.
Right? Like in terms of having a centralized piece for everything, right?
And a very, very different in different parts of Asia too.
Exactly. It's very different. Yeah. Like it maybe in parts of Japan it's different, but yeah, in Vietnam, like even if you wanted to go get, like, you know, your passport renewal or whatever, you'd have to bring IDs of your parents and all this stuff. Like, yeah, like, be able to prove, like, all this.
You lose all of that. You're like, guess I'm not traveling ever.
Yeah, sorry. Go yourself, you know. But Yeah, man. But that's where it was. And then so after we put all the building blocks in place, it was time to fly down there, right? And I'll never forget. This is the longest flight I've ever taken. It was Cathay Pacific overnight, Toronto to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Vietnam.
Okay.
Toronto to Hong Kong is 17 hours. Okay, so like you can imagine how long of a flight that is. I was really scared, man. I was scared to go down there because
You're going by yourself?
No. I went with my co-founders. One of my co-founders spoke Vietnamese. The other one was already down there, right?
Okay.
Boots on the ground. He was already sort of doing everything he needs to do. And then I'll never forget boarding that flight. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I'm going to a country where I don't understand the social norms, where I don't speak the language, where I don't have any family, where I don't have any friends. Mm-hmm. I'm literally like out of everything I've done, I've taken the biggest leap of faith of my life, essentially. Like, you know. We go down there, right? We land, and then it was like, I'll never forget. As soon as the airplane door opens, you just get a gust of like hot air in your face. We're like, wow. And we left like when it was pretty chilly, right? In Toronto. So it's like, that's the first time where I had like culture shock, you know? It's like, all right, I'm definitely not in Toronto anymore. Like, you know? And I'll start with the fun stuff first, right? We did a lot of like Vietnamese banh mi, a lot of pho, like, you know, had probably some of the best food in the world for like pennies on the dollar, right? That was really cool. And then after that, we got to work, right? We went office hunting. We got our first office down there. We got a warehouse set up. We got our team built. I was interviewing like crazy, and it's so funny because when I was interviewing people, I had an intermediary. Like I would tell
because they don't speak English.
Yeah, right, yeah. So I would tell something to this person. This person would convey it in Vietnamese. That person would convey it in Vietnamese, and then they'd convey it in English, right? So It was like literally the biggest game of broken telephone that I was playing, hiring down there. But it was fun. I had so much fun. It was like the most. It was genuinely so much fun being in that position. And then I picked up a little bit of Vietnamese, you know, like all that stuff. That was fun. Yeah, and then after we built our team, it was literally we were in straight hyper growth mode, right? So we went marketing, we went business development, knocking like figuratively knocking on doors, which is calling up sellers, be like, hey, sell on our platform instead, right? Calling up buyers, be like, sign up for our platform.
And all this is going on while the platform's also growing in Canada.
Exactly. Yeah, concurrently.
But your focus during this time is more on the Vietnamese market.
Exactly.
Whereas one of your co-founders is eating in
100%. And I'll tell you why, okay? Because a lot of people don't realize this, but in many parts of Asia, the tariffs are crazy. We're talking about the 25% like Trump tariffs, but in many parts of Asia, to get a car, like to import a car, or like even to buy a car, it's like a 200% tariff.
Wow.
Yeah. So to buy like a Vietnamese, you know, buy a car in Vietnam that's from Japan, it's going to be 200% tariff, right? So the average Toyota Corolla here costs around $21,000. Over there, it's $65K.
Canadian. So how do they afford it?
A lot of people don't.
And so it's just constant reselling of used cars.
That's what it is. There's a constant circulation of used cars, and that's where it was a eureka moment for all the money that I thought I could make in Canada, I could make way more in Vietnam.
Because the used car market is exponentially bigger.
Exponentially bigger, right?
So now, so that's why your friend said this would kill in Vietnam.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're there, and then afterwards, all that happens, and how are we doing on time, by the way? We're doing good?
We're doing great.
Okay, fantastic.
I think we are 50 minutes in.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, so we can tie this portion up, but yeah, it's all going fantastic, and then eventually we decide that okay, cool. You know what? I don't know if I want to live in Vietnam for the rest of my life or whatever. And the thing is, a lot of the government entities, especially when you're registering a business, they had issues with me being a Canadian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. Like when it came down to like us wanting to like import cars or whatever, bring cars from Toronto to Vietnam. That's like a trade route that we considered, right? And they're like they had issues with the CEO and the owners of the companies they're being non-nationals.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're more protectionist on.
Very, very much so more protectionist, right? So eventually it went really well for a little bit, and then we're like, okay, cool. We might have to let this go to some regard, right? So we ended up letting it go, and then again, M&As are so hard to discuss on camera, but we let it go to some degree, got it acquired by this other firm there, and then yeah, that was the end of that chapter, right?
And so how long was that whole Vietnam chapter?
Oh, the whole Vietnam chapter was, oh my God, we're talking from 2021 to 2024 last year, man.
Really? So how long were you in Vietnam for?
Dude, I was in Vietnam for like months.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. Yeah. But it's funny because a lot of the times that I had calls, and all my friends that are going to be watching this knows this, they would know to not. In Toronto, everyone hangs at 10, 11 p.m. My friends couldn't ask me to hang out at 10, 11 p.m. because it's 10 a.m. in Vietnam. So I'd be on calls. So I'm not even kidding, Nick. Like literally, like people would know to not ask me to hang out like on a Sunday night because it's Monday morning in Vietnam, right? So yeah, man. So it's the first time that I had to deal with like the whole time zone gymnastics, and it was so weird. All my calls being at night, right? But man, it was such a big learning experience. Like imagine getting on your computer at 11 p.m. Be like, all right, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? You
It's
know,
pitch black here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there's that.
Okay, so the Vietnamese part of this business gets sold, and
Okay.
you're done with that. You come back to Canada. What happens to the business here? Do you grow it to a certain point where you sell this portion of it as well?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So what happened was that both entities that we had, we sort of got absorbed by the same firm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
got absorbed by the same firm only because the IPs were connected, right? The intellectual property for the logo for everything was connected, right? So we had to give sort of everything up at once, but also we were sort of happy to, right? Because again, like I knew that this was not something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I knew that it had to be a stepping stone in everything I did. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. So then you get to a point where you sell this business, it's sold, you're done. What were some of the biggest lessons from that one? And how did this kind of overall experience of building the second business, this automotive one, differ from that first telecom business?
Totally night and day, right? Totally night and day because like for this business, I was actually in sort of the CEO and co-founder seat, right? Like CEO seat, I mean, right? Like, and there was a lot that I had to learn, a lot that I had to pick up, right? And to realize that even though I have the business acumen, I don't know anything about inspecting a car. I don't know anything about the laws and everything. Like like you think about all the laws and everything that we have here in Toronto and Canada, it's completely different anywhere in the world. And I haven't been to that part of the world, so I don't know it, right? So I was very uncomfortable in a lot of ways. I was also grateful, but I think the one takeaway that it taught me, which I think I brought in to everything I do in life now, is to actively seek discomfort. If you're not uncomfortable in what you're doing, you're probably not in the right place.
No, that's a great takeaway.
There you go.
You've got great takeaways. That
Thanks,
and then
man.
the know your customer better than you know yourself.
Thanks, man.
Good
Appreciate
advice. Okay, so you sell that business. I'm assuming that was in 2024.
Yep.
So since selling that business, what have you been working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently started an AI consulting company with my co-founder Wilfred. So Wilfred has a background in investment banking and corporate M&A. He loves AI though. He's currently building out a bunch of AI processes in the work that he's in. And I've always been interested in AI as well, and obviously implemented a lot of AI processes in things that I've done, right? Mm-hmm. So knowing that that's going to be sort of the big next chapter of what we consider technology, we're like, okay, we want to be in this, right? We want to be at the forefront of it, right? And what we're building is a consultancy where the average Joe business can actually implement AI in their workflows, right? To optimize everything that they're doing in their workforce, and also to have operational efficiency. That's sort of the big thing, right? When you think about what AI is doing for the average human like me and you, it's simplifying our lives,
Absolutely.
Right? Helping us write emails, whatever it may be.
So you're targeting more small and mid-sized businesses as opposed to large corporations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So to be small to mid-sized businesses, we have a couple of good use cases. Like one with the CEO of Leaf Group, and he's building a bunch of like medical spas and stuff, and we basically helped him implement workflows that cut costs for him, right? And these are things that are really hard hitting home, right? Because you think about it this way, like to cut costs, you have to cut an employee, right? Now to cut costs, you can just put in a new process. Right? And that's something that a lot of people really don't understand, or like didn't flip their switch yet, right? Yeah, so that's sort of the main takeaway of what we're doing now. I'm super excited for this, right? We have backing from a bunch of cool people and also University of Toronto, right? We have a partnership with them to sort of onboard their engineers for internships or whatever it may be, right? Just so we have more heads that we can throw at, the project that we're working on. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited for the future with this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's definitely interesting to be at the forefront of a new technology and see kind of this new revolution of AI.
Right, exactly.
That's coming in. So that's cool that you're doing a consultancy with AI. Where do you see this business going in the next 5 to 10 years? I'm assuming, given your past history with startups, that this is... We'll see where this goes, but what do you know? Do you have a general idea of where... Are you going to jump? Are you going to sell?
Here's how I'm going to tackle this question, okay? So in every business I've done, obviously, selling was a goal. But what I'm going to go with is that there's a reason for that. It's because you want to be the CEO of a 30-person company. You don't want to be the CEO of a 5,000-person company or 500-person company because that's when the politics come in. That's when you don't report to your report to whoever you report to the board, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of things that get complicated and make it not so fun to be the CEO of a big company. I have never wanted to be the CEO of a huge company, just so everyone knows, right? I don't think that's fun. And I think that would do more harm for my mental health than good. I want to feel like every day that I wake up that I'm not working, that I'm just doing cool stuff that I love doing with people that I love, like genuinely, right? And I think I've only really attained that in a smaller team. So that being said, that's a segue. My goal is probably to build it for 5 years, for 4 or 5 years, right? Get a stack of probably 50 to 100 clients, right? And then afterwards, see who wants to take over the IP or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah. And you kind of touched on my next question too, as we segue out of the more business questions to specifically on you.
Sure.
And you kind of touched on it, and that's how do you balance work and life and your personal growth as an entrepreneur while also growing all these businesses? Because entrepreneurship, it's intense.
Super intense.
Stressful, lots of late nights, lots of early mornings. So how did you essentially stay sane throughout the entire process?
Can't tell I'm insane. No, great question, man. And for a lot of it, I really didn't, if I'm being honest with you. I think I've showed you my calendar before, but it's like color-coded and everything. Yeah, it's insane, right? But, and I would say that's literally how I'm very organized in everything that I've done, right? And by being organized, what it gives you time to do is time block things like going to the gym, talking to family, calling up my sister or my mom or whatever it may be, right? So by staying organized, it helps you stay sane, right? And people that often feel overloaded or overworked, I would say they're probably not the most organized, right? I genuinely would, right? And I would say that's probably number one, right, in everything I've done.
Interesting. Okay. Are there any, let's say, books, podcasts, habits, or practices that have really been key in this journey, or even just any kind of educational material that you've consumed that have just really resonated with you and had an impact on you to help you?
Yeah, absolutely. Podcast. I'm obviously this one, but
Thank you.
There you go.
Shout
out Gents Club. This one obviously because I love you, but other than that, Lex Friedman and the usual ones that try to be a little bit more on the controversial side. I'm not a controversialist, but it's only because those are the things that I find interesting. I feel controversial opinions and people's take on it really interesting to hear. Right.
Me too. I like controversial opinions because it challenges your mind.
Exactly.
If someone says something crazy, we instantly want to kind of distance ourselves from it. You just need to sit there and you should listen to something that makes you
uncomfortable
angry or makes you uncomfortable. Because again, it's like, be uncomfortable.
This went back to what I just said. Seek discomfort.
Exactly.
Right? Seek discomfort, right? You're not
growing.
growing.
That's the only way to grow. Exactly.
Right? So, sorry, what was the second part of this question?
Yeah, I said books, or you kind of touched on this in the last one, was habits.
Habits.
Which I'm assuming is, calendar.
Organized.
Are there any other kind of things that you've done that have really
helped
you be successful?
I would say self-development is sort of at the forefront of everything that people should be doing past graduation, right? And one of the things that I've done really well is I've gotten to be a part of a lot of cool communities, like people can see on my LinkedIn, but I'm a part of Forbes Business Council, which is a vetted networking community where I fly to New York once a year and meet with a lot of other CEOs.
Wow, awesome.
So that's a good one. Other than that, I'm part of Mars Discovery District, which is also a tech startup community here in Toronto. They've backed Wealth Simple, Neo Financial, and a bunch of big ones.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so I'm part of that. And other than that, like I've gone out of my way to learn new skills like marketing, and you're a marketing guy, man.
I am a marketing guy.
And I'm sure you can resonate that I actually do understand marketing, and I'm not a marketing. I wasn't by trade a marketing guy, right? And that all came from self-learning, right? Like hours on places like I love this website called Udemy. Have you heard of it?
Of course,
yeah. Udemy, yeah. I've done course on Udemy, right? Coursera, right? All that stuff, and I feel like a lot of people like shy away from that stuff, but it's like, man, you could literally have Netflix on one half and do a course on the other half of your screen, like right, and do yourself a solid, right? So self-learning has also always been a big part of everything I've done.
Awesome. Before we jump to the next question, I'm just going to fill up my drink. So
Sure, go for it.
okay, we're back.
We're back.
So the last few questions I have for you,
Let's do it.
to close up this podcast, are they're more focused on advice for the listeners.
Sure.
So, what advice would you give to someone who might be watching this, who also wants to start his or her own business and then also scale that business? Like, what would be your big pieces of advice?
That's a fantastic question, and I get this question a lot. I would really say, I'll give you an example, okay? So if you look at anything that people like Mark Cuban or Kevin Leary say, the one business that usually millionaires and billionaires say they won't start is anything in a restaurant business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or food or service, right? And the segue for that is that you should really do research on the margins, on what you can make, what the total addressable market is, what the sizable market is, and what your market is, right? I feel a lot of people start a passion project, and it's great to have a passion project if you have extra cash running around. But the average person doesn't have a lot of extra cash, right? So make sure that passion project can actually be profitable. Like I said, it's all things I've said throughout this podcast. Seek discomfort. Know your customer better than they know themselves, right? Research everything. Be obsessed with your industry, right? And if you're not obsessed with your industry, then I don't know, like
Maybe it's not the right industry for you.
Maybe it's not the right industry for you. Exactly. Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, if you're going to dedicate yourself fully to something, you need to put in the work and you need to do the research and know every single thing that you can. You need to be obsessed with it.
Exactly. Right. Like I like to say that, man, like you asked me throughout this podcast, you asked me pretty technical questions about internet, and I'm not a software engineer, but I was still able to answer them, right?
I also hear those marketing answers come out where you take like a very complicated thing and you turn it into plain English.
Exactly.
So marketers do.
That's what marketers do, and that's literally what I've done, right? And that's what you got to be able to do. Like, you got to be obsessed with your work every single day. You can't think that it's going to be a 9 to 5 and that's it, because I just said that I used to start at 10 p.m. Overseas hours and end at 3 a.m., right? Like those would be my hours. I'd go to bed, wake up, and then again, I have another team in Canada that you're right. Like you see where I'm going with this, right? So you really can't be afraid of long hours. You can't be scared of constructive criticism, because a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, why are you doing this?" Or maybe that's not the right thing, right? So you really got to be grounded. You got to be grounded, and you got to be knowledgeable, and you got to really be intelligent about how you conduct yourself. 100%.
No, great answer. Great answer. If you could go back to your younger self, let's say the version of you prior to starting your first business.
Okay.
What's like the one piece of advice that you would give to that younger self?
Stop caring so much about what other people think. Genuinely.
It's a good one.
Like genuinely. Like I used to care so much about, what if this person thinks this, or what if this person thinks that, or and genuinely in the grand scheme of things, that person that you're worried about will not even know you exist in 6 months, not even a year, 6 months, right? And moments happen so quick. So stop caring so much about what other people think. Be yourself. Be unapologetically yourself. I would say I started being more successful in business after I was unapologetically myself. If you guys couldn't tell during this podcast, I have clinical ADHD, right? But the thing is, that jumpiness and how I come out strong has actually helped me engage in conversations where people don't get bored or whatever it may be, right? And I used to get really insecure about that, genuinely insecure about that, right? So stop caring so much about what other people think.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And taking maybe what might be considered as like a weakness or something, turning it into a strength,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Taking that energy, that's perfect for your pitches. That's perfect for, going up to investors and getting in their faces. That's what you need to do. So
exactly. Have you ever seen that video of Steve Ballmer? You know Steve Ballmer, which is
I don't think I've seen this video, no.
Oh my God, he's the old CEO of Microsoft. He used to go on stage and go, "Wow!"
Oh, that dude, yeah.
You ever see that? You know,
and he's like sweating and
he's
stuff.
sweating, like sweat stains on his. You know,
I've seen the
that's what
video.
I think of myself as sometimes. I'm not that crazy, but I've gotten referred to him like, oh, you're the CEO like that guy. I was like, all right, cool, whatever.
The great thing about entrepreneurship and doing your own thing is like no one really cares.
No one cares.
It really just comes. Do you have a good idea?
Yeah.
And do you have the skills and the talent to get it done?
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into corporate or something, and I really felt this when I was at Deloitte, they put you in a box.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to kind of stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Especially at a big company. We've spoken about that throughout this podcast. But the cool thing about entrepreneurship is you can do whatever you want. You can be as authentic as you want. And you can go in any direction you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people love it.
100%. 100%. I agree with you on that.
Last question to close out the podcast would be, what's the one takeaway, maybe out of all the things you've spoken to, or maybe something you haven't mentioned? What's that one takeaway that you hope the listeners will get from hearing your story?
Bet on yourself. Always bet on yourself. No one else is going to bet on yourself for you. You got to bet on yourself always, right? There's not a single person in the world that has become financially free or literally gone crazy levels of rich by working for somebody else. If you have a great idea, and by the way, I am going to be the first one to say that I don't think I have the best ideas. The only thing that I've done is I've executed on my ideas. Right? A lot of people, I go to a random bar, Nick, and genuinely, and I hear people tell me ideas. Like this guy told me this dry cleaning on demand service that he wants to start. That's a great idea. That's probably a more profitable idea than I've had before. The only thing is, I was like, cool, so what have you done? He's like, oh, I'm just still thinking about it. That's not getting you anywhere. Stop thinking, start doing. Stop thinking, start doing. Write it down. Build a plan. This week I'm going to do this. Next week I'm going to do that. Do it part-time. Everyone's working 9 to 5. That's fine. You still have the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5, right? So during that 5 to 9, put it down on paper. Put down exactly what you're going to do. Build a monthly plan, a weekly plan, a daily plan, right? And then bet on yourself, right? Because when you do that, great things will happen.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. That's a strong way to end the podcast.
There you
Shaq,
go.
thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, buddy.